Michael has 25 years in management with the federal government, including the Department of Environment Canada. And we're really pleased that he's here sharing a wealth of information that he's been developing over the last few years. Thanks, Mike.
So as Lynn said, the pipeline crosses the farm near where I live that we purchased 10 years ago to try to build this more sustainable community. We knew there was a pipeline there, and we understood that it was carrying oil. Then in April of this year, I was shocked, unbelievably shocked, to hear that it's carrying tar sands bitumen. And that why I was shocked is because here all this debate is going on about the Northern Gateway pipeline, whether we should have a pipeline that's carrying tar sands products. And yet, for the past many years, they've actually been shipping tar sands right through our valley and on tankers to the States and piped to the States. The line separates in Sumas, and about half of the tar sands bitumen is shipped to refineries on Puget Sound. The other half it goes on to tankers and goes further south to California or now across to China. So beginning in April, a number of people like me were finding out about this. Lynn and Ruben knew about it before we did, but we were just blissful in our ignorance. Very quickly, we gathered together to get information because there wasn't a lot of information. The company wasn't saying anything about what it was doing at that time. We formed the Pipe Up Network in April, and we've been accumulating information and talking to people, talking to our neighbors, talking to people up and down the pipeline, and talking to people at town hall meetings. So here's what I've learned. There are 4 big issues that stick in my mind. The first one is the extract of tar sands, just the amount of tar sands that's being extracted. Ruben spoke eloquently of the problems that creates for the planet, for the people. And it's something that you can't escape when you start to think about this issue. The risks of transporting bitumen. Now Lynn has talked about that and talked about the spill in Michigan. The company tends to be saying these days that, bitumen, that's just like any other, it's just another grade of oil. Well, that's not what we're finding out. And that's not what the people in Michigan found out for sure. And they're still, as Lynn said, they're still trying to clean it up. It'll probably never be cleaned up, the Environmental Protection Agency says. This is what we're up against. The idea that, the environment might get in our way because we've got to look after the economy. Well, in Pipe Up, I think one thing we agree on is that the environment is where we live. The environment is the container in which everything else, including the economy, survives or fails. So the facts are, just to recap what Lynn and Ruben have said, Kinder Morgan they bought the line from Terracin in 2005, and they've been shipping tar sands to the US since 2006. In February, the first tanker of tar sands bitumen was shipped to China. Last year there were 39 tankers that went through the harbor, through Burrard Inlet, out through the Narrows and into the Salish Sea and the Strait of San Juan de Fuca. The year before, 2010, there were 71 tankers. If the expansion were approved, there would be a tanker a day. So roughly 350 to 360 tankers a year. The line you can see that purple line that goes along the map. So McMillan Island is just across from Maple Ridge, the eastern end of Maple Ridge, and you can see the line just south of there, it passes just south of Fort Langley. It goes into Walnut Grove, which wasn't even built when the line was built. So that's a fairly built-up area that the line goes right through. Again, through neighborhoods, past schools, and so forth. It crosses. You can see the watersheds: Nathan Creek, West Creek watershed, the Salmon River watershed, the Yorkson Creek watershed, and the aquifers are shown in green. So it does cross an aquifer in the Salmon River watershed. So it's not, it's something that we all will be affected by. If there were a spill into any of those watersheds, of course it would likely get into the Fraser. So what are the economics of it? We know that the two, Enbridge and Kinder Morgan, collectively would spend about $10 billion to create the Northern Gateway Pipeline and the expanded Kinder Morgan pipeline. And they're fond of talking of the spin-off benefits that this would result in. Well, you know, there are spin-off benefits anywhere you spend $10 billion, you can bet that. But the fact of the matter is that pipelines are capital intensive. That is, there's a lot of, these long lengths of pipe that are fabricated elsewhere. And there's relatively less employment in it for local people. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and noted economist Robin Allen have both analyzed the company's plans, and the CCPA says that Enbridge's forecasts for employment are grossly overestimated. It would be likely 1,850 construction jobs for 3 years and a total of 200 person years permanent jobs. That's for Enbridge, and the Kinder Morgan line would be, because there is already an infrastructure there, would be much less. In fact, there would only be about 20 jobs, permanent jobs. The companies don't address, the big thing in my mind is they don't address the economic costs and the environmental risks associated with spills, and they ignore the costs of carbon emissions. So the conclusion in the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, their conclusion was that the pipeline would likely be uneconomical for British Columbians. And their quote, while private gains accrue to the oil and gas industry, huge costs are borne by others. The impact of the Fraser Valley, the first thing that would happen is the price of gasoline will go up. Agriculture, business, and tourism would be affected in the event of a tar sands spill. Our drinking water, the salmon fishery, could be devastated by spills. And by exporting raw materials, we contribute to inflation. That would increase our dollar. That would mean that local manufacturing would be negatively impacted. So what would be a different approach? The picture at the top there is what's the river? Athabasca. Athabasca River and the boreal forest before it was touched by development. The bottom picture, of course, is what you see now with the tar sands development. So a different approach would obviously slow down and clean up tar sands extraction. As Ruben suggested, $1.6 billion in subsidies just for tar sands. End that, or redirect it. We need incentives. I mean, I think probably looking around the room, I would guess that most of you are probably doing quite a bit to modify your lifestyles, buying more efficient cars, light bulbs, retrofitting your houses, and so forth. I think people are doing probably about as much as they can do. We need government to step up to the plate, because to switch the paradigm from the oil and gas paradigm to the alternative, it's going to take a lot of help, assistance by government to promote renewable energy, to start to build a new infrastructure for energy, and to provide transportation alternatives. No one in this room, we the people, cannot create new transportation alternatives. That's government working with industry. We think we need a BC energy strategy. Looking at alternatives, with government support, Canada could become a world leader in energy. We're far and away from that right now. Germany, on the other hand, as an example of what can be done, now produces 20% of its power from renewable energy sources, and they have not suffered the slings and arrows of economic misfortune that other countries have, even in Europe. They're doing very well, and they're exceeding their targets. They probably will exceed 26% of their power will be from renewable sources by the end of this year. Just for fun, do any of you know who the largest manufacturer of renewable energy is in the world? China. I heard China, yeah. It was the United States up until last year. Surprisingly, it was the United States. But China has leapt ahead of the pack. They doubled the amount of renewable energy infrastructure in the past year. Simply put, we need to find alternatives to tar sands exports. We need to keep those jobs in BC, and we need to support investment in renewable energy. This is a climate conference, and the speakers talking about energy independence and sustainability and green jobs, livable cities, healthy children. And a man at the back saying, what if it's all a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? So if you want to join with us and do something about it, Pipe Up is dedicated to finding out as much as we can and for ourselves, informing ourselves and our communities, finding alternatives, and showing that we can create our own alternative. We can do it differently. There are little cards at the table at the back there, like this, that has our contact information. So by all means, get in touch with us if you want to get more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.